All right, let me fix it. There we go. All right, so every day we're going to be practicing different skills relative to the AP English language exam, which will center around writing a rhetorical analysis essay in 45 minutes. All right, today's skill that we're practicing that I'm going to model for you is writing an effective analytical claim. It's important to know how to write an analytical claim because that analytical claim stamps the rhetorical choice that you're going to analyze throughout the paragraph, as well as the intended effect on the audience and the connection to the overall purpose, with two things that are foundational to the entire rhetorical analysis essay. Every choice that a writer makes has to have an effect on the audience or is intended to have an effect on the audience and should help support the author's or writer's overall message and purpose for the text as a whole. So we're going to start by stamping the rhetorical situation, which you practiced on the other day. The first thing we're looking at in this prompt is context. We know that this is the opening to a speech made in 1960. Also, if you look in further along in the prompt, we see that in this speech, Luce went on to criticize the tendency of the American press to sacrifice journalistic integrity in favor of the perceived public demand for sensationalist stories. Sensationalist meaning stories that are just published for attention or to get readers' attention and not really for like journalistic integrity or journalistic, values and things like that. It's not really to inform, it's just mostly to entertain. But uh, that context is important because if you don't like really acknowledge that context, it's important. It's there's a potential to make the mistake to think that in this particular passage, that Clare Boothe Luce is actually criticizing the press. And in this opening, she's not criticizing. All right. She's setting them up for criticism later because it says she went on to criticize. All right. And this is a opening. So that part is important. And this is why it's important to like really do a deep dive through the prompt because, it's very easy to miss those things, overlook them, or to um, overestimate those things. Also, what do we know about our writer? We know that she was an American journalist and politician. And that's really all the information that is given. We can make the assumption that she was very good at those things. Otherwise, she wouldn't be called on to speak at the Women's National Press Club, which is her audience. She's speaking to fellow journalists at the Women's National Press Club. This is very important because it helps to kind of establish her tone throughout the passage. Um, you have to ask yourself, how would you feel as a member of an industry asked to speak in front of your peers and basically, criticize them, right? So that definitely goes into her tone throughout the passage. So that's an important thing to notate. Her purpose here at the end, again, her purpose is not to criticize in this opening. Her purpose is to use this introduction to prepare the audience for her message, which we see in the context is to criticize the tendency of the American press to sacrifice journalistic integrity. All right. So before we go through and do and model how to write an analytical claim, let's first look at our success criteria and thinking steps. All right. These are the steps that I'm going to take in order to meet this criteria. In order to characterize and describe a rhetorical choice, I'm going to think about what is the pattern in word choice. All right. In order to describe the intended effect on the audience, I'm going to think about and ask myself, why does the speaker believe that this word choice will be effective on that audience? Okay. And to connect that choice to the speaker's purpose, I'm going to think about what is the speaker's overall purpose in general. All right. All right. These things are here, of course, highlighted in different colors. So let's look at the first paragraph. I'm going to read it, and then we're going to go back through and look at the patterns in word choice and how it leads me to write my analytical claim, or how it leads me to characterize that rhetorical choice in order to write an analytical claim. All right, so this is lines 1 through 10, first paragraph. I am happy and flattered to be a guest of honor on this always exciting and challenging occasion. But looking over this audience tonight, I am less happy than you might know. I'm sorry, less happy than you might think, and more challenged than you could know. I stand here at this rostrum, invited to throw rocks at you. You have asked me to tell you what's wrong with you, the American press. The subject not only is of great national significance, but also has, one should say, infinite possibilities and infinite perils to the rock thrower. All right, so my first step is to think about, like, what is the pattern in word choice that I see. So I've highlighted several word choices, either just simple words or phrases that lead me to understand, like, what is she trying? What is the message that she's putting forth in this first paragraph? So we know she starts off by saying that she's happy and flattered to be a guest of honor at the occasion. So in one sense, she's very happy to be there. It's obviously a prestigious event that means a lot to her. So she's definitely happy and flattered to be there. Um, then she contrasts that by saying she's less happy and more challenged. So why? Why is she less happy than she just previously stated, and why is she more challenged than she previously stated in the first sentence? Well, because she's been invited there by her fellow journalists to, as she says, throw rocks, right? Meaning to criticize them with her words. Right? She's being figurative. Um, this would be a good time to pause and say that when we're writing these analytical claims, it's important to focus on the message and not the figurative language that you see. It would be very easy to say that in the first paragraph, Luce uses a metaphor to, indicate how challenged she is to be there, right? The metaphor, the throw rocks, isn't really the defining part of this paragraph. It's the overall message that she's challenged because of the fact that she's asked by her peers to criticize them, all right, in front of them, basically. Um, so again, focus on the message and not the figurative language or the device. Says, you have asked me to tell you what's wrong with you. Again, this is, for some people, the low hanging fruit would be to, focus on the repetition or the parallelism of you, me, you. And that's not the point. It's the message is the most important part. All right. The subject not only is of great national significance, but also has, one should say, infinite possibilities and infinite perils to the rock thrower. The rock thrower is the speaker, Luce. I highlighted great national significance because, again, this is showing how challenged she is. Like the message that she's going to deliver is not just one that's important to the people in the room, but to the entire country as a whole. All right. And that message deals with journalistic integrity from, the national press. Infinite possibilities, meaning, like, hey, if we can get this right, then this could be a great thing. Like, the possibilities are endless for the entire country and the industry as a whole. But infinite perils to the rock thrower. Like, this could be bad for me. All right, the fact that I'm sitting here in front of my peers, people I respect, some of the most, well-known and powerful people in the country, and I'm basically tasked with criticizing them and telling them what's wrong with them. All right. So the overall message here is that, hey, she, in an awkward way, she's being asked to criticize her peers in front of them. Right. And that's definitely a challenge for her. So she can't go through the rest of her speech without acknowledging how awkward it is that she's sitting here in front of her peers and being asked to criticize them. All right. So this leads me to the next step is what type of we have to describe the intended effect on the audience and ask ourselves, why does the speaker believe that this word choice will be effective? Well, ask yourself, if you're being asked to criticize your peers, um, what is the first thing that you need to do, right? We always talk about, like, at the beginning, authors usually want to build credibility or stamp their credibility with their audience. She needs to earn their trust because in order to criticize people in front of them, you have to earn their trust in order for them to not take it the wrong way, to not feel personally about it. So in this in this line here, line 6, where she talks about she puts the onus on her audience. Like, you have asked me to tell you what's wrong with you. I didn't come here by choice. I didn't wake up one day and say, I want to criticize the press in front of them. You asked me. All right. So she's building that credibility with her audience by putting the responsibility for the criticism on them. She's effectively earning their trust. And again, this goes back to the purpose, which is she's using this introduction to prepare the audience for her message, which is to criticize the press uh, for sacrificing their journalistic integrity in favor of sensationalist stories. All right. So putting that all together, also other parts, the last part of the criteria is to cite the location of the choice. So basically, where is this choice located? So, and it's important to do that because we're analyzing an argument, basically. And when we analyze an argument or when we make an argument, we want to follow a line of reasoning. So, stamping like the location of it helps the reader see like the line of reasoning throughout a passage. Like, this is where they begin, and this is how they kind of follow that line of reasoning to the overall message or the overall point or thesis. All right, so putting that all together. In the first paragraph, lines 1 through 10 of her opening, Luce awkwardly acknowledges the difficulty of her position as a journalist, asked by her fellow journalists to, quote, throw rocks at them in order to earn the trust of her peers and eventually set them up for eventual criticism. All right. So I color coded each part of that analytical claim to match a different part of the criteria. So cited the location of the source here. Um, we characterize and describe the rhetorical choice here in red. We connected, describe the intended effect on the audience in purple here in order to earn the trust of her peers. And we connect the choice to the speaker's purpose here in blue. So eventually sets them up for eventual criticism. All right. That's writing an analytical claim. What I want you to do after you finish watching this video is to use the same criteria and thinking steps in order to write an analytical claim for either the second or third paragraph here, right? Starting here at line 11 or starting here at line 18. Write your analytical claim in a Google Doc and submit that into the question, and that will be our practice for today. All right. Have a good one.